Hey guys, Alex Apple at Amon G Stadium, joined here today by Jeremy Clark and Jeremiah Glenn. Just wrapped up Gary Patterson's weekly press luncheon. Jeremy, one of the things that he talked about, perhaps the most interesting, on a pretty much a day with not a lot of big news. Gary did talk about he feels like his team's attitude is better. Last week he came out, said that his team felt sorry for themselves. He said that's changed. And one of the key words that he brought up was ownership.
Well, last week was only 1 day, 2 days of practice, and he said they needed to grow up. So obviously since then they've practiced, 5-6 days, so they've grown up in the ways they only know how to, and that's getting back to Gary Patterson football, playing with the chip on the shoulder and taking that ownership.
Right. And Jeremiah, you talked with Kevin White and BJ Catalon about taking that ownership, and how the team's attitude has changed over the past 2 weeks, and how the leaders were stepping up on this team, to get everybody on the same page. What did they have to say to you?
Well, like they said, these guys took that loss very hard. It was a difficult loss. They didn't feel like they played well really in any aspect of the game. We felt like the defense played well, but even they feel like if the offense isn't really running, Kevin White says our goal is to get a shutout every game. So even if the offense is struggling, these guys want to be playing better than they did. Basically, the time off came at a good time. They were able to heal physically, and I think they've got their mind right, and they're ready to turn this thing around against SMU.
And before we start talking about the offense again, which we've talked about so much over the last 16 days, there's a 16-day break for TCU. Let's talk about the defense. Gary Patterson said today tackling is really what they've worked on, and he brought up an interesting point. You were within striking distance the fourth quarter against LSU, tied with 5 minutes ago against Tech. This team's really not as far off as it may seem. It really comes down to tackling, right?
Yeah, against Texas Tech, that was 2 big plays that they were just trying to hit with their shoulders, didn't really wrap up. They're 20 points, 2 losses combined, 20 points against 2 pretty good teams. But you got to look at the offensive side of the ball. We're going to keep saying offense, offense, and I think they did a great job defensively. I'm on the bandwagon of saying TCU is doing an extremely good job on defense, with the exception of those 2 tackles they missed against Texas Tech. Offense is still the key. Offense is what I want to see against SMU.
Right, it's a defense that's done a good job forcing turnovers, specifically interceptions. They got after the quarterback 4 times.
4 sacks.
4 sacks against Texas Tech. I'll admit it didn't seem like that, but 4 sacks, if you can put up 4 sacks every week, that's going to lead to a lot of success. Let's start talking about the offense, though. That's really the key here for TCU going into this game against SMU. They come in favored by 20 points.
I don't see
that would for me, that might mean that the defense pitches a shutout and TCU wins 21-0. How do you see the offense clicking this week?
Until TCU shows me on the field, I can't get behind a 20-point victory. SMU, they're not that great this year, but it's still a rivalry game. And even when SMU hasn't had great teams, SMU's always played TCU very tough. I don't see any way that TCU wins this game by 20. I think they'll be happy to get out of here with a 24-17 type win. I don't think SMU's going to light up the scoreboard, but I don't think TCU will either.
Yeah, and Gary did say that he goes back to his motto of win by 1. Score 1 more point than your opponent. You do that 12 games a year, you're looking at a pretty dang successful year.
And that's what we were mentioning last week in our video, is that they're not up to this 45-point mentality like everyone else, the Oregons or the Baylors, Oklahoma States. They want to get that 1-point win, and 20 points, I can't believe the spread is that much. Honestly, Jeremiah told me to bet my mortgage before the press conference that SMU would cover that, so I might just do that.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Gary talked today, and some fans may not know what this is. TCU worked a lot on the scramble drill this week. Explain to us what that is and how that's meant to improve the offense.
The simplest explanation, go pop in some Texas A&M football games and watch Johnny Manziel. That's what it is. It's a scramble drill. What we've seen with Trayvon is when he scrambles, he's looking to run. When Johnny Manziel scrambles, he's looking downfield still. He's looking for receivers. And I asked Gary today in the press conference, are the receivers getting open? That's been the big thing. Receivers have taken some knocks saying that they're not getting open, but I talked to people that were at the Tech game, saw the receivers open, Trayvon just couldn't get it. So Trayvon needs to utilize his scrambling ability and look in the pocket a little bit more, scramble around side to side. Johnny Manziel is a pro at it. He's gotten so many big plays off of being able to do that specific scramble. Let Trayvon do that, use his legs, find the receivers that are getting open downfield.
Playing off of that, Trayvon ran it 20 times against Texas Tech, and we expect TCU to run it more coming here up in the next few weeks, especially against SMU. But does Trayvon Boykin run it more this week, or do you think they cut back on how many times he takes off the ball?
I think they have to cut back. You're going to get your quarterback hurt. I think he ran 20 times. I think they said maybe 10 of those were designed last week, or 2 weeks ago rather. Right. I think you need to see a heavy workload between Wayman James, B.J. Catalon, and Aaron Green. I think each one of those guys they need to combine for the minimum of 30 carries. I'd like to see closer to 40, and that's where you need to work those guys. You've got some workhorses in that group, and you need to put those guys to work.
And Gary did mention in the press conference today that they moved the ball against Texas Tech the last 2 drives, doing nothing but running the football. Right. So I'd look for them to do that exact same thing again. And the big number that we all spoke about last week and when they played Texas Tech, 20 carries for Trayvon Boykin, 19 carries for Wayman James and B.J. Catalon. You cannot win ball games with that ratio.
And it's a powerful stat. In 66 games, when TCU has rushed for 167 yards under Gary Patterson, they're 63-3 in those games. They simply don't lose those games. They're able to control the clock, right, and their defense is able to get stops because it's a defense that's ultimately rested due to that stat. Guys, let's talk about the keys to the game. Give us 1 or 2 that you think will be really important for me. I'm going to start it off mentality. TCU's got to come out with a mentality that they are better than SMU. They're going to play more physical than SMU and hit SMU in the mouth. It starts with the running game and it starts with a tough defense. Both of those things TCU is capable of. They play within themselves. I think they'll find success. So I'll start with you. What's your key to this game?
Run the football. Run the football. Make simple plays on offense. Be simple on offense. Make the play calls that matter. If it's 4th and 1, don't line up in shotgun. Line your quarterback up, get under center, move the ball ahead. They've got a bigger offensive line. They don't have to worry about Marcus Hunt this year. They play a 3-4 defense over at SMU, so they're going to have running lanes. They're probably going to put 7, 8 in the box. If that opens up, let them start throwing little bubbles out to Ty Slanina or Deontay Gray. Let them make some plays on the outside. Open up the slants in the middle. Right. Send someone vertically. Open it up a little bit, but stay simple. Do not put too much pressure on Trayvon, and for Trayvon, do not act like you have to win the game by yourself.
Right. Basically, Trayvon doesn't have to win it by himself, can get other playmakers involved. Jeremiah, what's your key for this game? I
think you can't let Garrett Gilbert get into any type of a rhythm. I mean, their offense hasn't been gang breakers this year, but if you watch the tape and you watch him I've watched all their games so far this year, he looks a lot better this year to me. He looks like he's making quicker decisions. He's getting rid of the ball quicker. You can't let him get into a rhythm, so you got to disrupt that. And we don't want to just rush 3 the whole game. You want to see him attack a little bit with maybe some more blitzes, but you can't let him get settled in.
Garrett's actually averaging 338 passing yards a game, and I was looking at the stats. I was kind of surprised. He threw for 388 against Tech, and he threw for 310 against Texas A&M. Now, they were playing late in the ball game, but that's nearly 700 yards against 2 teams that only have 1 loss between the 2 of them that have played tough competition. So you can't say that Garrett Gilbert hasn't played tough competition. They did play Montana State, but if you look at Montana State in the FCS rankings, they're consistently one of the top programs in the country at that level.
Right. SMU offense is still only averaging 22.5 points per game. By comparison, the much maligned TCU offense averaging 25. So it's an SMU offense that you don't want to give them any type of confidence. TCU can certainly take Gilbert and take some of their confidence away very early.
And one of the things about confidence is they won on this very stadium we're standing at right now 2 years ago, and it was a 33-10 game at one point. Right. So that's before Casey came back and had a miraculous 23-point comeback, and they lost in overtime 40-33. They still have Jeremy Johnson, the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown against them, had 12 catches, 152 yards that game. A lot of fans will look at SMU and say, oh, they're still SMU. Right. Well, TCU is not TCU right now, so they can't go in thinking like that it's just little old SMU. They beat them here 2 years ago, and it's been a one-possession game the last 2 seasons, so you got to look at that.
Coming up later this week on Frog Blitz, who holds the advantage, the opponent breakdown, also our college pick'em. If you're keeping up with that, shout out to Greg Powers. He's made us look like pretty much idiots at this point so far. And this may be premature, but I'm going to ask you guys, what would your prediction be if you had to give one right now, or are you even able to give one right now, Jeremy?
I'm not able to give one right now. Kind of like
what a cop-out, though. Come on.
No. Like Jeremiah mentioned earlier, I haven't seen anything yet. I've heard a lot of talk the way the TCU offense is going to change. I know they got the playmakers to score, but one possession game the last 2 years, and I keep going back and forth on that. And I'm kind of reminded of when us 2 picked San Diego State 2 years ago after they lost that game, and their offense changed. They win 6 consecutive games, go 11-2, and Casey has a great year. But right now, I can't give you a prediction. I don't know if it's going to be the TCU that we've seen against Texas Tech, or we're going to see a simple TCU offense. It's going to be very vanilla on offense, but can they execute those plays off of that vanilla offense and move the ball? Right now, I can't tell you.
Jeremiah?
I don't want to go with a score, but I do predict a TCU win. I think the thought, listening to Kevin White talk, the thought of going 1-3 at TCU, it's unacceptable, and these guys know that, and I don't think they let this game get away. They realize that they fall to 1-3 this season is going to be a disaster, so they have to step up. I think they'll come out with their hair on fire, and I think they take this game.
Especially with OU on you can't look past SMU when you got a trip up to OU
You can't look
next
past
week.
anybody when you're 1-2. So.
Exactly.
TCU will kick off in Norman 6 p.m. TCU kicks off this weekend 11 a.m. It'll be early, but TCU really needs a good crowd in here. That is important for the Frogs this weekend.
You got the pattern, the stadium pattern. What was Mark Cohen telling us? Purple
Color
and white.
block,
Yeah. So let the fans know about that. The color block.
Yeah, it'll be blocked white, purple. I guess it'll be on your ticket.
Right, and the front page on Go Frogs that a lot of us click past to go to actually has a graphic color blocking the card. You either wear purple or white. I think the student section is wearing purple. Some other sections, general admission, might be wearing white. I might even have that backwards, but check that. That is something TCU would like to do. It look really cool in here, especially if you get a good crowd in here. But 11 a.m. kickoff, it's going to be early. Fans have got to get here, early in the morning.
And just another number that we were given as we were walking out is SMU had to send back some of their tickets because they couldn't sell them all. So they're not going to be bringing over a lot of fans like you and I anticipated last week, maybe 10,000. I don't think they even have maybe 3,000 for this game. So it's going to be a lot of purple and white in the stadium this week.
All right, guys. TCU plays on Fox Sports 1. If you're not able to make the game, it will be televised on Fox Sports 1. Have you guys, let's give a little love to our friends at Fox Sports 1. Have you guys watched that channel yet?
It's how about Erin Hardigan? She's been tearing it up on there.
Right. Yeah.
Aaron Hardigan, Greg Powers. I feel sorry for Greg. He was going to get some spot time on halftime last week for Coppell and Garland, but you know what? They got a long future ahead of them. I think we see both of them in the near future on Fox Sports 1.
It is what it is, a growing network, but definitely something that's on the rise. For Jeremy Clark, Jeremiah Glenn, I'm Alex Apple. Stick with Horned Frog Blitz this entire week, and thanks for watching.